And now I have the pleasure of introducing Hilary Zayed. She is a brain injury survivor. In her life before her closed head injury and post-concussive syndrome, she was a third-grade classroom teacher, avid flute player, and passionate horseback rider. Through the reinventing process, she went from a person who didn't create art to becoming a passionate artist and writer. Because of her traumatic brain injury that dramatically changed her life, she could no longer return to any of the pieces of herself that she identifies as what made up who she was. Her reinvention was supported and encouraged by friends and family, driving her to grow by leaps and bounds. It was through this encouragement that Hilary compiled the art with the writings along with the reinventing journey into a book titled Reinventing Oneself After a Brain Injury, An Artful Insight. This book is scheduled to be released in the summer of 2015 by Lash Publishing. Hilary states, "It has not been an easy journey, but no worthwhile passage is." Please help me in welcoming Hilary Zayed to the first Beverley Bryant Memorial Lecture.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. I would like to thank the conference committee for giving me the honor of being the first annual Beverley Bryant Memorial Speaker. Bev, a brain injury survivor, was a wonderful mentor, friend, humorist, teacher, and supporter of many people with acquired brain injuries. She did this through writing, speaking, and caring. She was also a pusher. She would constantly push myself and others to reach for goals, to challenge our mental limits, and do things we were afraid to do. Her motto was never give up and push to your limits. That is one of the reasons I am here today. I am pushing my limits. I am balancing the feeling of this room spinning with attempting to stay focused. Secondly, thank you to my husband, Salah, and a wonderful caregiver who constantly helps me when I need it. And a big thank you to my son Omar and daughter Lila, who published a free booklet of the reinventing process that will be available in the Survivors Workshop room. And at the end of this lecture, there are 2 people who will be handing out free booklets. There's also a handout in the registration packet. This is what the booklet looks like, and this is what's in your registration packet. I'm also grateful for all of my friends who help and support my endeavors. It is a true blessing to have them all in my life, for it is because of them that I am able to do this and have a process for reinventing my life based on what I can do. But at the same time, I need them in order to be able to do what I do. It is a team sport to help a person with a brain injury to reinvent their life. You may be wondering what I mean by reinventing oneself, and so my go-to is Webster's Dictionary. It is a verb requiring action, to make as if for the first time something already invented. This is rather self-explanatory. You had a life, you had trauma to your brain, your life is not the same, you feel as if you are not the same, and try as you might, you cannot get back to your old life. The definitions continue on with to remake or redo completely, and to bring into use again. All 3 of these definitions, in my experience, need to happen in order for life to come up off of the couch and occur again. So who is it that we are talking about who needs to reinvent themselves? If you are a traumatic brain injury survivor, you will recognize the life of the room spinning, the wonky head feeling, the grieving process of watching your previous life fade away as you continually attempt to go back there and do the things you did before your traumatic brain injury. You will recognize the statement, "The harder I try, the worse it gets." You will attempt over and over, unsuccessfully, as if you are addicted to go back, to keep the life you once knew. You will not only be angry and stuck, but you will continually wonder, what will happen to you? How will you find happiness again? For caregivers and family members, and those of you in the medical and therapy professions, I've come to realize that often you will see the signs of the survivor's old life fading away, even though they cannot see it themselves. You might mention they need to find something new to do, a new focus, a change of direction, long before they are ready to hear about a readjustment to their life. As a survivor, you will closely listen and watch. Your friends, you will notice they might start to move away. And your family might want to know, when will you change? You can sense their frustration and hope for your life to become unstuck. The medical profession and therapists will encourage you to become aware of yourself and how you are now. They will suggest ways for you to move ahead with your life. But all the while, a black massive hole is in front of you when you think of your future. My goal today is to share the steps of reinventing oneself that I have constructed into a book of art and writings that journey by becoming aware while working through loss, grieving, and denial, learning to accept while recovering and working through rehabilitation, taking action while recalculating, forming plans, and finding new paths. I realize this sounds like a lot, and after 8 years of working at Reinventing, I would say I am still in the process and still working at moving forward, one action step at a time. As we all know, acquired brain injury arrives in many different forms, and even though there are numerous formats for acquiring a brain injury, there are even more possibilities for how that brain injury will play out in a person's life. I would like to share with you the insights I have learned from reaching my defining moment when becoming aware of the inability to return to my previous well-lived life started. It was recognizing the difference between what was currently not possible and the identification and acceptance of what is possible. It was, and still is, a journey of action plans that involve attitude adjustments in order to have a life well lived with meaning, happiness, purpose, and the ability to help others. For those who cannot return to a previous job, previous hobbies, a sense of who you were in the world, reinventing oneself after loss gives you hope filled with possibility, a reason to get up in the morning, and most importantly, happiness and the ability to give back. Let me tell you how this journey of reinvention began for myself. On April Fool's Day, 2006, I was a third grade classroom teacher, a flute player, a mother of 2 grown children, a wife, and a passionate horseback rider. 1 week later, I was thrown off of my horse, landing on my head, and entering the nightmarish land of concussion, closed head injury, and later post-concussive syndrome. I had been riding most of my life, so coming off of a horse usually wasn't a problem, as I knew how to do a flying dismount. However, this time, I was already unconscious before I left the saddle. According to the woman I was riding with, I was galloping through the woods. She had turned around and witnessed my body being propelled across the dirt road. I landed head first, cracking my helmet as my body and head smashed into jagged rocks. My body landed so hard on the rocks that I was jolted into awareness by sheer pain. I passed out again. However, my body had bounced with a vengeance after the first hit and slammed a second time, cracking the helmet in another place. In hindsight, I must have leaned forward during our gallop. My horse Poppy would often stumble when I leaned forward. Normally, that wouldn't have been a problem as I rode in an English saddle. But on this fateful day, I had decided to ride in my Western saddle with the horn. I can only surmise from the emergency room doctor saying that I had separated my pelvic bones that I passed out from hitting the horn at the front of the saddle. After 2 weeks, my body physically recovered enough that I thought I could go back to my classroom to teach. However, any time I walked into the school I used to teach in, my body and brain would feel like I was totally drunk, and yet at the same time I had the worst hangover feeling I had ever been through. Everything was moving, except my body and mind. It was hard to walk, hard to talk. I couldn't think. The room moved like it was made out of liquid. My feet didn't know where the floor was, and I felt like I was falling over all of the time. During this time, my neurologist broke the heartbreaking news and said that if I rode my horse and fell one more time, it would probably kill me. So no more horseback riding. I had to sell my horse as we couldn't afford him anymore, and I couldn't take care of myself or him. I had entered the world of survival, learning to recover my balance, my vision, my normal hearing, my cognition, and how to take care of myself again. And all the while, I was filled with an attitude of denial. I was unrecognizable to myself, my friends, and my family. I felt the void of no more horses. I couldn't tolerate music, or any sound for that matter, and the sensory overload of the school where I used to teach was more than I could handle for even a couple of minutes. It was during the first year of being alone in my house that I started watching HGTV and saw a show where someone made a mosaic, and so it began for me. It was a defining moment in this journey through traumatic brain injury. However, at that time, I didn't recognize it as such. The artist on this television program smashed plates and china, then glued them together, making flowers and patterns on a terracotta flower pot. Symbolism at its finest. I had discovered a way to piece my life together, one shard, one broken piece at a time. The mermaid tray. I found myself to be drawn to the mermaid. I dreamt of orange-colored hair, green-blue fins that bound and freed, the nakedness under the cover of the deep blue sea, surrounded by life, yet not of my own. Near the bottom, where the abyss lives, I swim away, headed for home, to catch a breath or a glimpse. My back turned so you can't see. I am alone in the deep, filled with pieces of life that are not my own. The mermaid comes to me. She is a messenger of healing. It is her job to save me. She lives within me. Now, I am a person of junk, I admit that. However, it is not to say I hoard, I just keep a lot of stuff. So into the basement I went. It took me a long time and many attempts, but eventually I completed my first mosaic, this mermaid inlaid on a tray. Made of pretend sea glass, tiles, shells, sand from the beach, and thoughts in my head, I found an outlet for creativity, something to do, and a way to express what was happening to my life and my spirit. I didn't make art in my previous life. In fact, I was asked to leave the college drawing class I was taking because I had no talent. And so I did. All of the art you will see and the writing that goes along with it are of my own production. My art became my joy. I was learning during this time that recovery was a place where denial seemed to live. I had hoped that the possibility still existed for the return to my previous life. I was given the motto to live by: what you don't use, you will lose. And so push beyond my limits was the way I approached at getting better. However, the harder I tried to get back to my old life, the worse my symptoms became. Sun Spirit. When the time comes of being well enough to start to fight what is happening, denial sets in, and the battle begins. I will get better. I will get my life back. I will have it my way. But my way does not come. And the more fight and struggle arises from within, the less healing and moving forward occurs. And at the same time, the fight precipitates the ability to create a new way of living and being, a continuing challenge to work towards health, to never give up, to work at getting better. Rear up against the dependency, rear up and challenge what is being said about the rest of your life, and find the power within to continue the fight for what you want to happen. And later, in hindsight, you will know whether your fight was a success because you got it your way, or a success because it turned out differently. Either way, it is the spirit of the earth, wind, water, and fire that keeps moving you forward, even though the outcome lies within the sun and moon and larger forces. Oh my, what a difference. I didn't realize how many of my friends were related to the things I did. There were my horse friends, but I no longer rode. I cried and grieved all the time over the loss of my lifelong passion of riding. I found it difficult to hang out with those friends whose conversations were about their fun and craziness while horseback riding. I had friends and wonderful support from my colleagues at school where I had worked, but I was no longer at school, so those friends were disappearing too. My music friends were people I went to play music with, so those friends also vanished along with the music I couldn't listen to anymore. Life became lonely. Friends departed as my life disintegrated. And when friends disappear and family has moved back to their own lives, who are you left with? A couple of my friends stayed around while others disappeared, but in actuality, it was I who disappeared. Talking on the phone was difficult. I couldn't get out and socialize, and I didn't want to. I was in and out of the hospital and emergency room and spending most of my time on the couch alone in my house. When I did go out, it was usually to go to a doctor's appointment, and my husband would spend his day off, taking me where I needed to go for medical assistance. This went on for about 3 years, until I was well enough to go out to outpatient rehabilitation for traumatic brain injury. I needed others who understood what I was going through. I needed support and people to talk with and to listen to. I needed a new herd. Wild horses. Horses of different colors tend to cluster and run together, forming herds that support one another. They have the same view and live as a tribe, taking care of one another. When separated from the herd, they stand alone, frightened, looking for like-minded support. Who else feels and looks this way? How will I stay safe? How will I survive? Am I the only one? It is important that we all find tribes, groups, and herds that will support our differences so that we are safe and can grow and have a place with meaning amongst the living in order to be living. It is within this group that one can flourish and grow to become wild and full of life. Kathy Kroll, the recreational therapist at New England Rehab, asked me what a piece of art I had made meant to me. I am still amazed at how the tiniest things in life can make such a huge difference. I told her what that painting meant to me, and so many words came out that even I was surprised. She then encouraged me to put my thoughts about the art and my experiences down on paper. I learned about myself through these writings. I started to become aware of my new self and recognized a need to at least develop a life that I could live with while I attempted to go back to my previous life. I needed to define my recovery process and add the component of not just waiting, but one of living while waiting. I was blessed with family members who asked me, "What can you do while you recover? And what will you do if you do not recover?" And then the dreaded question of, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? But the more appropriate question was, what makes you happy that you can do now? And so I started dreaming of having a new purpose. I often look to nature to find meaning, and especially in nature we can see the interconnectedness when we look. For example, the bees need flowers to survive, and flowers need pollination process to survive. Everything in nature has purpose. When living with a newly acquired brain injury and losing the purpose you previously had in life, how do you create a new purpose for living? It is a vast hole of emptiness that you look into when you are over the hump of learning how to clothe, eat, and move around again. When gardens dream, even gardens dream of better days, of brighter colors, of being the place, the brightness that brings joy to others. Even gardens dream of being the best that they can be. However, it is not always up to the garden as to how they grow, how much sun and water they will receive, or what their purpose will be. Even gardens that are overgrown or dying teach someone something. They have purpose. Maybe not the purpose that they want. They may not see themselves for what they are or what they offer, but they can still dream of being better, brighter, and offering more. During recovery, I started to ask myself, who am I now? I felt very different. I had difficulty remembering who I was on a deep level. The people helping me move forward would say, I am the same person, and yet I didn't seem to remember what that person felt like. I couldn't enjoy the things I had enjoyed before. I couldn't teach school, ride horses, or play music. I found myself listening to people say, if I only believed in their faith, I wouldn't be going through this. After telling acquaintances what I was going through, I would find myself cringing when their words of disbelief left their mouths saying, well, you look great. I had to learn to accept others' points of views as theirs and find and maintain my boundaries. Spiritually, I began to grow stronger, and I was always looking for a way to be a better person and improve my life. I started to recognize that I moved slower and processed my world only if it was in slow motion. I had to give up the addiction to my old life and let faith quietly move in order to discover the power that is greater than my own, that is based in hope. The new mantra I found was, all things are possible. Flying free. It is a dream, a wish, along with medicine and totem. Last fall, an eagle built a nest across the lake from our house. We would periodically see it fly down the lake, sit on a branch, or seem to float in the sky. The most powerful revealing of the eagle spirit happened one day when my son, husband, and I were in the boat, headed away from the nest, and the eagle was flying home. It came within an arm's reach, eyeball to eyeball with us, going in the opposite direction. I could hear its strength and power as it carried my prayer to our Creator and returned the message to me, all things are possible. I had to look for a structure to help me get through this journey. I found it in my caregiver and husband, Salah, my family, new friendships, and my 3 cats. They held my world together. They supported me in trying to find a new purpose, and they did their job so well that they made and still make me look good. They were my framework. I found the process of discovering self-awareness and moving into acceptance to also be a confusing time. I learned that I have memories that are incorrectly strung together. I often heard that I should accept my life as it is because it is about the journey, not the destination. Well, how do you enjoy a journey that is filled with trauma, drama, sitting on the couch, fighting for medical care, fighting your disability provider, feeling like you will lose your house, stuck in a place that is lonely and scary? There was nothing about this journey in the beginning years of reinventing that made me want to stay there, and so the attitude of anger moved in. Attitude. There are times when attitude will get us where we need to go or help get us the things we want. There are other times when attitude does the opposite. It drives away those we want to connect with. We can use attitude and confidence to boost our morale, but just as there is totem of strength, there is medicine to tell us that attitude can work both ways. It is the wise wolf who knows when and how to use attitude to get what they need and get to where they want to go. However, it is rare to find someone who can travel with those who have too much attitude. Eventually, I started to discover my limits and accept them. My attitude of being obstinate and saying, "Of course I can do this or that," which landed me on the couch for the next 5 days, was starting to make sense. It was simply a cause and effect universal property, and nobody else had to pay the price of living on the couch but me. However, the good news is this: you can begin your new life now. The universe and people around you will tell you when it is time to step up and make a new life for yourself. We often do not want to hear it. We are not ready to give up the obsession we had to our old life. But we must, and we know that on some level of our being. I heard the idea often in brain injury support group that if it weren't for this devastating change in my life, I would not have the wonderfulness of what I have now, and I wouldn't change a bit of it. Before, it was my family asking me. However, now I was asking myself, what would I like to spend my time doing? What excites me? So I looked back to see what I had been doing with my life up until now and answer, I love teaching, speaking, learning, laughing, and exploring. So then the question becomes, what can I do that fills those kinds of experiences? I write to find the answers to those questions. I explore ideas with my counselor. I attend a support group for people with brain injuries, and I take art classes to continue to learn. And every time an opportunity arises, no matter how big and scary, I consider it a gift and a challenge from the universe to go partake if I am physically able. The vast universe. Not long ago, when the people at rehab told me it was time to think about graduating the program and moving on, all I could feel was panic. What would I do with my extra time? Would I be able to keep my life put together? How would I manage my day, my week, my life? I had become dependent. I needed the help to figure out what was coming up, what had worked, what wasn't working. Now, with graduation, the universe of possibilities lay before me, expansive and unknown, my uncharted territory. Yet at the same time, it was full of color, light and dark, sparkles scattered randomly throughout. Ahead lay the possibilities of a new lifetime, a reinvention, a journey, and an adventure. I am afraid when I look at the vastness, but try to remind myself of all those who have come before and said, if it weren't for this devastating change in my life, I would not have the wonderfulness of what I have now, and I wouldn't change a bit of it. Now that I have graduated rehab, I'm ready to cut my ties that bind, wear funky clothes, speak up and educate. I will move towards my fear and pace myself so that I can enjoy all the vast universe has to offer me. You can hear in my poetry that I look for the good news even when fear runs amok in my head, because living with a brain injury is like living on a roller coaster, and this is why. 3.5 years after acquiring my traumatic brain injury, labeled as post-concussive syndrome, I went through physical recovery, rehab, and being released to venture in the world. I found myself flailing in the waters of life. Depression, anxiety, needing help with daily living skills, and isolation were difficult in and of itself. However, now I had to try and create a new life, which is overwhelming when just deciding what to wear or eat is exhausting. What I learned was to stay strong, move forward one tiny step at a time, and remember, all I am doing is recalculating. Recalculating. Seemingly black and white decisions, easy ones at that. Recalculating. It's life's little do-overs, a chance to attempt to get there again, only utilizing a different pathway. While life is not a straight path, and our decisions are made in order to get from point A to point B in the shortest possible way, recalculating happens. I thought I was going the right way. I thought I made the correct decision, and I discovered that I had to rethink, redo, reassess, and figure it out all over again. But isn't it wonderful that the universe doesn't drive us off of the canvas and instead gives us the opportunity to send us in circles until we finally figure it out and offers up the blessings of recalculating? I could only drive a couple of miles on back roads, and I wanted to make new friendships. However, I found socializing difficult now, so I asked my counselor, how do I return to land of the living? And she suggested that I join the local art group, even though they did not consider mosaics to be a form of art. I joined anyways. I found that it was these little uncomfortable steps that made the journey worth traveling. Metamorphosis, a striking alteration in appearance, character, or circumstances. Life is about change. Life requires change. Change can be frightening and difficult to do, and when it seems that you cannot take that step on your own, ask for help. Opportunities for change will occur. Oddly, they often are not what we were asking for and thinking would come our way. But look for the opening or the break. Take the chance and watch yourself change. Metamorphosis offers a new advantage to life. Recognizing that change was necessary and learning to take small, uncomfortable steps towards having a new herd and things to do, I found what I was lacking was confidence. I realized in order to move forward, I needed to find the next step in reinventing myself. That step would be to develop confidence, even when self-belief and reliance were non-existent. Developing confidence. Upon feeling beaten down time and again, weary from failure and being dependent, the next step is offered up. Develop confidence. A watercolor on grade quality paper expresses a lack of confidence that the painting will not be good enough to spend money on using expensive materials. The paper has been rubbed and scratched as in a cloud overhead, looming almost as doubt, gently visible, ever present. It is a representation of the past and present that lingers as a puff of dust waiting to fall on fur or blow away. The goal? Just pretend you have confidence and step towards ideas and offerings from others and say yes to the things that scare you. It is important, though, to put into place all of the possible strategies you might need to get through the experience. Even though the negative incidences feel like they outweigh the positive, now, in this time of recovery, creating the possibility to have positive experiences, utilizing all of the learned strategies, pretending to have confidence, now is the time to step out of the woods and learn to stand on my own feet. Independence and becoming the lone wolf is never easy. Therefore, the wolf will teach you to grow. It will teach you to be confident. The lone wolf will teach you to be a survivor, for you have no choice if you want to return to the land of the living. By this time in my process of reinventing, I had spent 4.5 years until finally I reached a point where I felt I had become more aware and started to accept my new self. I was practicing the art of pretending to be confident and embrace change. However, I still did not feel as though I had purpose in my life. I was counting on the end result of this reinventing process to be in my reaching a repurposed life. I believed if I had reinvented myself, then I could breathe and concentrate on a simpler life, a singular goal, a life easier to live. In the early years of recovery, there was a lot of physical, emotional, and brain work I had to do to get to a place where I could even think seriously about how to reinvent myself. And when I got into a better place to actually reinvent my life, I found that some of my reinvention really wasn't in my hands to determine. Try as I might, I could not make a gallery pick me up as an artist, and I could not make people buy my art so that I could replenish my coffer and have the singular goal of just making art. I had also found that even with all of the strategies I learned in rehab to engage in a meaningful life, that did not mean that my brain and body would work when I wanted them to. Therefore, there were still some factors I could not control to determine my reinvention. What did seem to be in my repurposed life, along with creating art, that's the wrong slide. That's all right, just leave it. There we go. What did seem to be my repurposed life. I doubt that was his problem, it was probably me. What did seem to be in my repurposed life, along with creating art, were the reinventing exhibits of art with writings that speak to dramatic life changes after loss, how we all have them, how we survive them, and how we can hold hands with others and share our experiences. It is in this way that, with the help of knowing there are others, listening and telling our stories, that the load will be lighter to carry on our journeys. During this time after rehab was over and I was attempting to build a new life with meaning, I still held on to my hopeful mantra that all things are possible. However, I was learning that, similar to asking for a pony at Christmas, the things that I wanted may not be the things the universe had in store for me. And at the same time, I must say, in hindsight, sometimes what I asked for did materialize when intention was put in it. So possibilities really can exist, they just aren't clear black and white opportunities, and you never know if they will happen or be as you expected. And with the insight that possibilities are ambiguous at best, I started to let the universe reveal the direction it would take me. I found that after 4.5 years, I was doing better at learning to accept my strengths and weaknesses more. However, I was still dealing with fears and finding faith. I was still dealing with my disability case through Maine PERS. I was still dealing with what am I supposed to be doing with my life that I can accomplish. But the hardest thing to deal with was, and still is, the challenge of living with a hidden disability. The following quote is written in 2008 by the National Union of Journalists, Disabled Members Council in the United Kingdom, that echoes what I have heard experienced by many people after brain injury. Quote, "One of the major problems faced by people who have hidden disabilities is that often other people don't see the disability and often don't believe them. Frequently, we are told that we don't seem disabled. For many people, they feel that the foremost discrimination anyone faces is to be disbelieved. Hidden disabilities can also cause difficulties because of the attitude of others due to fear or ignorance, as people fear what they do not know or understand, or what they cannot see." So, Plan A. I thought that the process of reinventing oneself would include spiraling in and out of the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And then I would be done with the emotional healing and become a new person. I thought I would be done with the reinventing process. However, that did not happen. So then Plan B. I thought that if I finished the steps of recovery, rehabilitating, recalculating, and reinventing myself, again, I would be done with reinventing myself and I would be done with the process. But apparently that too did not happen as I had thought and planned. So I went on to the next plan, Plan C. By now I had changed my mantra from "all things are possible" to "fake it until you make it." I believed I would follow this invisible process of healing and moving forward and reinvent myself as something, anything, but it never occurred to me that my reinvention would be the continuation of my healing and growing process. I thought I would come to an end of the reinventing process. It would be over, and I would step into a new me. That too did not happen, as I had thought. Therefore, I continued to make new plans, new goals, and keep moving forward. I learned that reinvention of self after one's identity is compromised is obviously a long process. It is defined by the person's loss, constitutional makeup, support they receive, attitude, and numerous other factors. Its personal agenda is important to pay attention to, as one's timeline for change is dependent on that person's journey. 6 years after my reinvention process began, I started to ask myself, will my reinvention ever feel complete? Will the feeling of moving completely past loss ever happen? I will have to wait and see. I know that the time for mourning is over. My tears come periodically, but my life is a process with a little more focus and direction. Have I reinvented myself, I'd ask? I would answer during the 6th year of this journey, it still is a process, possibly a never-ending process, and it is possible that my life before loss was the same way. I just don't remember. Tears in a bottle. During the mid to late 1800s in Victorian England, mourners would collect their tears in bottles with special hold stoppers. When the tears in the bottle finished evaporating, it was the end of mourning, and the bottle would be placed on a shelf as a remembrance of eternal devotion. I have come to a place where tears are no longer being added to my tear bottle, and I hope the time of mourning is over. However, I still weep periodically, but not in the overwhelmingly painful way I used to cry. Now I accept more than I deny and regret. So I ask myself, are my days of mourning over? Have the tears in my bottle evaporated? I answer myself saying, for the most part, yes, I am done mourning, and then I cry. So with knowing that I am where I am supposed to be, walking in the path of higher self, it is time to put the tear bottle on the shelf of honor. I have had the opportunity to live a life with horses, teaching, students, music, and tremendous fun. I am eternally grateful for that place in my previous lifetime. I will not collect any more tears. If I stumble and cry, it is only momentarily. I have watched the tears in my bottle evaporate. It has given me time to heal and remember. But now it is time to live my new life and create new opportunities to laugh, to give, to teach, to learn. So, after logging my journey for the first 6 years, after my accidental fall, I found that in hindsight, the team that helped me in my reinvention process had the following roles. Doctors and therapists helped me move out of denial, suggested new things to do, supported my new endeavors, listened to me cry and complain, kicked me in the butt when I needed it, showed excitement when I succeeded at something small that was working towards a new me, helped find new therapies, acknowledged the crazy things that happened to my body and brain due to traumatic brain injury, helped me recognize that the work for physical recovery didn't necessarily work for brain recovery, and most importantly, believed me when I shared what was happening to me. I learned about caregivers. All I can say is God bless you for all that you do, the extra effort you put in, the new form of understanding that you take on, and the struggle you willingly walk through to live with the new person you have acquired. The time had finally arrived when I was able to be aware and recognize, accept and recalculate, then with courage move forward and take action. And then the universe presented the true meaning of reinventing oneself. Yeah, you heard me. The true meaning of reinventing oneself. Spring. I have had many totems and faith carriers on this journey. The mermaid, wolf, eagle, goddess, God, and horse spirit. But the one who has carried my burden the most is my loving husband and caregiver. He has walked through fear, showing only strength. He has provided when systems work to diminish. He has sacrificed when he could have walked away. And when recovery, denial, anger, depression, recalculating, mourning, and repurposing had all been trodden through, he asked for simply one reinvention of me. He told me my only job in life right now is the job of being happy. For in doing so, his job of carrying both of our burdens completely lightens his load. And so, I work on my reinvention of this person who looks and finds happiness in corners of my soul. I had thought before my accidental loss of old self that happiness was a product of being a hard-working, respected and knowledgeable person, raising a family, holding a career, competing on horseback, shining with a flute. I thought for 6 years that in order to find that happiness again, I would have to find a way to fill all of those empty holes with totally new ways to achieve and shine in the world. However, the reinvention of myself wasn't to find a new job, a new hobby, another way to be respected in this world. It wasn't to become a mosaic artist wanted by galleries and patrons. My reinvention turned out to be an epiphany, turning on as light in my brain. I discovered as I repeated the words my husband said over and over, my only job in life right now is to be happy. That it is myself that needed the reinvention, not what I did in this life. How blessed I am to have finally discovered what really needs to be reinvented in me, someone whose job it is to be happy. And as my journey has been put on paper here, it is obvious that happiness doesn't come easily. So I read about it, I make plans and goals to help it become a part of me. I pray for it, I wait for it, but most of all, I reach down inside and feel it. I realize that this reinvention for me is much harder than attempting to find a new career path or latching onto a new feeling of self and worth. This reinvention is much deeper, a course correction in my spiritual path. This journey down the forested path, deep within the uncharted woods, is a metamorphosis, a change from my inner caterpillar existence to becoming the beautiful butterfly. I am headed to the gold fleck glistening down the road, yet happy to be on this ride. So for now, I see my reinvention as a shift in my spirit from being where I was to being one filled with joy. So originally, there were 3 basic steps to reinventing oneself: become aware, learn to accept, and take action. But now, with the true meaning of reinventing oneself, we had added, be happy. So I'm going to skip over a lot of these next 4 because you have this in your packet. So we have become aware, learn to accept, click. Define how reinventing can improve your life, click. Take action, be happy. And so after 8 years, and click one more. After 8 years of traveling on this personal journey, I cannot say that I have fully reinvented myself, but we can journey together through the process of becoming aware, learning to accept, and taking action by conjuring courage to move forward. And most of all, create happiness in your life. This is so not only we can enjoy our reason for living, but also lighten the load for those who choose to carry us when we need it. For myself, I have attempted to stay on course, refine my goals, and continue to work hard on moving through obstacles and leaning forward. Oddly, it was leaning forward on my horse that fateful day that changed my life. That action gave me the gift of making art and writing about it, having a meaningful reason to get up in the morning, help and inspire others, and be happy on this journey to reinvent myself after loss. So, blessings on finding the courage to move forward and reinvent yourself as you deal with your loss from acquiring a brain injury. Thank you.